Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you with my friend Linda West, who's a best-selling author who has written multiple books, has had multiple adventures, one with Terrence McKenna, others with Alex Jones on Infowars. Linda, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Randy. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We were just going on about how like we had first met, and I guess it was because you got really popular being on Infowars with Alex Jones. Were
Right.
you like a regular recurring guest on there?
I was a nightly news anchor, is what I was.
Oh, that's epic. I've definitely seen a bunch of your videos.
Yeah. Well, won the reporter contest. He had a reporter contest, and I entered, and I was one of the winners, and so that's how I ended up down there. But I had a restaurant in California, and I just wasn't really ready to let it go. I thought it was going to be closing earlier than it was, so I didn't end up staying that long, actually. But it was
When
very interesting while I was there.
what was the video that you had made in order to get on there? What was it about? Was it like 9/11? Was it stuff
I got to
like
tell
in
you,
the
I was
war?
so lazy. I just used one of the ones that I already had on YouTube because I already been like, complaining about the government. So I'm like, oh, here's one. This is perfect. But yeah, they kind of like were like, you could have done a better job. I was like, whatever, you're working, making videos. I guess I wasn't really sure I wanted it or not. So I'm really glad I had the experience, but it was interesting because it was, I think it was Sandy Hook pretty much that I was like,
Um,
yeah, no, I'm not going to say that. It was like I was kind of new to all the conspiracy theories. It's like that wasn't something I knew anything about, and it started back in like 2008, I guess. But so I had been on the show and been a news reporter for a while, and it seemed like every time there was a mass murder, they said it was a false flag. You know what I
uh,
mean? So I was like, oh, okay, false flag, false flag. And then Sandy Hook came around and all the like, you know, dead kids and stuff. And I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable saying this too much.
yeah,
It's too bad it fell out the way it did. But anyway, I didn't know he had $1 billion. I would have asked him for more money when I worked for him.
yeah. The how many people were working for him at the time?
It was a pretty big operation. I'm telling you, it was the size of at least 3 football fields and the warehouse. Yeah, there were a lot of people. So I'd say there were like 8 on location reporters, including like anchor people. Then there was Alex, and then there were all the, design people that did all the graphics. They were
Yeah.
busy all day long. So, and there were like 3 or 4 of them. And then there were other producers. Like I was there when, do you know Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes? Well, actually, Aaron and Melissa Dykes now because they met when I was there. Actually,
Oh, cool. I feel like I vaguely remember them, but
they're on
not.
Truth Stream Media now. They went over. They're doing their own thing. It's kind of like Infowars, but it's called Truth Stream Media.
Oh, cool. Good for them.
They're great. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The No, I don't believe I watched too much of their stuff. I vaguely remember their names. What was the So when you were around there and reporting stuff, and you said like this one thing with Sandy Hook you couldn't really do or say because of your own feelings towards it, were there any other things like that? Like, I don't know how to really fact check this because it's back in like '08 and
No, not
information
really.
wasn't
No, I
available.
was with I was with Alex in like 2012. So
Okay.
I'd already been making videos. It started out that as you mentioned to begin with, like I'm a best-selling author on the law of attraction. I broke a code and connected a code, I like to say better, in a Mayan calendar and was down there with Terrence McKenna and all these scientists. And I wrote the first book. In fact, here it is. Plugging my first book.
Do it.
I wrote this in the rainforest pre The Secret, and it's all about the law of attraction. It's still my best-selling book. It's amazing. It's amazing. I didn't write it. I channeled it. That's why I can say it's amazing, because I channeled it with an angel. I'm a psychic and a clairaudient, which means I hear
You,
things. So I started getting dreams initially. That's how I connected the code, ended up down there in the rainforest with all these scientists. And then once I got down there, pretty much I was just getting clear, audible transmissions and writing them down all the time, and became my first book.
so it wasn't like hey, I took a whole bunch of acid and mushrooms and learned the Yaoi in nature. It was
No, it
something
was the other way around, actually. I got down there with Terrence McKenna, and they're like, here's some mushrooms. And it's like, I'm now in the rainforest, tripping along in my Jaguar bikini. You know what I mean? I scaled the back. I scaled the back of a 10-story pyramid in my bikini, high on mushrooms. I'm
that
like,
must have been a sight to see.
yeah, I'm like, I'm channeling the Jaguar, and I'm thinking, this is how people die, you know what I mean? Later on. But no, it was one of the best experiences in my life. And I was old enough, you know, I was always like an athlete, and I started modeling very young. They pulled me off the streets at like 17, and I went to those were rock star days. Let's put it this way. Harvey Weinstein threw me my 21st birthday party in
Wait, really?
1980. Yeah. That was before he was in movies. He was a music promoter at the time.
Oh my God. So we'll get back to the code in a second. Tell me about 21st birthday of Harvey Weinstein. I did
Yeah,
not know he was going this
yeah.
way.
Yeah, well, back in the day, you know, dating myself here, but what can I say? Back in the day, like in upstate New York, after I came back from modeling, I had a scholarship. I wanted to go. I've always wanted to do something to help the world. And back then, I thought becoming a lawyer and a senator, I'd be able to do that. And then you realize, like, I'm not sure they can do anything without paying, you know, pay favors. But I don't know. I started to realize that might not be the road to really helping out the planet. So in any case, I was in college and I started working for a rock radio station as like a model. It was my job to take the bands out on the town, like in Buffalo, you know what I mean? So it was like the Stones and stuff, you know what I mean? It's the best job ever. So Harvey Weinstein was a music promoter then. And my first boyfriend was in a band that when Van Halen broke up, David Lee Roth started a new band, and he took him as the bass player.
Hmm.
So Harvey was his manager, and that's how I met him. And so, yeah, he threw my 21st birthday party. I mean, he rented out, I mean, big time too, cake, champagne, a big band, a huge, like, you know, like stadium, like not stadium, but like where all the bands played. It was a really good time. He was a good friend of mine, actually. I mean, I'd fly down to New York City and stay at his place when he wasn't there. Like,
Nice.
and then the funny thing is, when I went out to LA and was actually acting and like really like acting big time, I had a big agent. He wouldn't even take my phone call. Maybe I'm lucky, I guess, but like I'm like, well,
Yeah.
God,
So what was he like
he's
in?
brand
I
money.
know this is X amount of years ago. What was he like though in like conversation behind closed doors? Was there
You
any
know,
signs?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. He was pretty much a very unkempt man. You know, he's very he didn't have you know, let me see. He was rough. He was a rough socially, like character wise, you know what I mean?
But
Like he just got I mean, I used to make him muffins. Me and my boyfriend would bring him over bran muffins, and they were always like sitting in his beard or something, and just that kind of thing. Like it wouldn't like get rid of it. And like you're like, how can you
oh,
not know that half the bran muffin is now in your beard, or like maybe, or I don't know. It's just it just seemed like he was kind of sloppy, but super smart. So
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, he's in jail now.
Okay, so that's wild. All right, so back to the code breaking. Did
So the
you go there intentionally to like break a code? Did you go there?
no.
What was the original purpose of you going there, and how did it come to you breaking the code?
Good question. Good question, Randy. Um, what happened was I had this situation where I was around a large crystal in Topanga, and we were all allowed to sit on it, and we were doing this kind of just meditation where we're sending love and light or something. You know what I mean? I'm a Catholic, so I was always like, oh, this doesn't sound too evil. I can do this or whatever. I'm that.
Yeah.
They're always like, no tarot cards. So I'm like, okay, we're sending love around the planet. This seems very Jesus-like. But well, in the middle of that, she let each person get on the crystal, and something happened when one of the my ex-husband at the time had just gotten the biggest record deal with a new band, and and everybody we knew quit their jobs and moved in with us in Malibu. So his brother had just moved out, and I didn't really know him, and he was sitting on the crystal. And all I can say is I started shaking and literally went into trance and started like giving him information that I didn't know. And then it just started happening to me, and also in dreams. So I was starting to write it down. And it first led me to write a movie. I write scripts and books, but I wrote a movie. And like I had a lot of people I knew at the time that were big directors and stuff at the restaurants I worked at, like Spielberg and Michael Mann and stuff were coming in. So they were like taking a look at my stuff. So I actually thought like, you know, naivete, but like, oh, I'm going to make all this money, because it was like save the world kind of thing. It was kind of like, it wasn't Avatar, but like, you know how Avatar has that message of like saving the world ultimately. Like, so that's kind of what the movie was. I thought, oh, this is a great way to get the message across how important it is to like, remember we're all one, yada, yada. Anyway, so I thought I was going to make a lot of money on this movie. So I was looking to give it away to charities before I even got it. And so Terrence McKenna at that time, he lived in Maui, and he had what he called a living library. He had gone into all the rainforest all over the world with all the tribal and shaman people and had them point out all the magical plants or healing plants. So he took them home with him and made a garden in Maui to protect them in case we rolled them over in the rainforest or they were ever extinct. And I thought, oh my God, this is so brilliant, because that's one of my pet peeves, like destroying, rainforest. But so I contacted him, and I ended up winning a scholarship into the rainforest with him and all these scientists. And like 5,000 people came to watch them all lecture. And mine was all paid for, which was the beginning of me learning how to manifest, because I was a new mom and like, broke. Yeah. And it was awesome. So I had no idea I was at an entheogen conference, which means the ability to evoke the God within. So there were people down there doing, DMT and all this stuff. And here I am like, okay, I'm old enough to try this stuff. I'm going to try it. You know what I mean? It's like, first I'm going down the hellway with marijuana. Well, then it was like, mushrooms. I'm like, I'm old enough.
How old were you at this time?
That was the year I tried everything. And it was like 30. I was 30. And I'm like,
okay.
I wrote down everything afterwards like a scientist. Felt like this, would not do that one again. Like, but it's, so that's how it ended up. So I was down there. I started getting more and more transmissions because the Mayan runes are a very high frequency. And then the rainforest is a super high frequency. And then I'm down there with all these high frequency people, right? So everybody was just like zooming. And I started getting just more and more transmissions and literally wrote that entire book, like channeled it, because I was dropping all this science, like physics that I don't know. And math that I don't know. And I kept saying, oh God, are you leaving me out on a limb here to look really foolish? But, luckily it all added up. Thank God for that. So, so that became my first book. And then I went on to write like 26 other books.
What was the math? Do you better understand it now that it's been a few years? Like all the stuff is behind that first book.
Yeah, well, luckily it wasn't calculus or something like that, because I never would. It was more, like, how do I explain it? Like, for instance, dimensional, like for instance, when we look in a mirror, or like we look at the negative of space, it becomes 12 three-dimensional balls. But in the middle, there's a space for the 13th. The inverse of that is not negative. It's then the ball, which encompasses everything. And you begin to see really interesting things like throughout history with the number 12 and the number 3 and triangles. And especially like we can look at, like, for instance, like Jesus, 12 apostles and Jesus, 12 knights of the round table and Arthur, 12 gods of Olympus and fate. In fact, even when Aphrodite was born, they kicked out a goddess, so they had to have 12. And even today, we still have like 12 judges, 12 jurors and a judge, so it still goes on, the 12 and the 13th, where the 13th represents the space that, I'm just going to sum it up like this: 99.99% of our entire being in our world is space. And Einstein said we could study all the matter we want, but it was almost nothing. We're almost all space and nobody knows what it is. And he thought it was God. just as a scientist, he thought it was God, which means if you start thinking about it, like the cross then takes on another thing of like you're a human being taking on matter in a world that's all energy, right? And then all of a sudden you have to think our cells are 1 billion years old when we're born. So why do we fall apart in 100 years?
Yeah, what do we? Is it the type of matter we are?
I mean, I don't know. Wasn't Noah and all those guys running around like 900 or 1,000 years old? Weren't they living like for like a super long time?
I mean, I know that
Bible
we.
times early, but
I feel like we start breaking down really young. Like my knee started hurting when I was like 13, and then it just got worse from there.
your
Um,
knees.
yeah, and I mean, it was probably just because of I don't know. I had like bad hips. I always had like these like skinny legs because I didn't realize until I was like older, but hips were like misaligned, and that like messed with like the muscle growth on like legs, which messed with the knees.
Oh,
They don't have that padding there. So yeah,
is
military
that
was not that fun.
now? Are you okay now?
No, not at all. It's worse. But it's like I don't know. It's fine. It's better now because I can work out a little bit and I can get some muscle to pad the joints that are around it. Um, but I don't know. I feel like in general people's bodies start breaking down like usually as like a teenager. Because you get a little ache here, you get a little pain there. Like even like wrestlers, like oh hey, I have to wrap up my knee or I have to wrap up my ankle
Yeah,
because
for
they
sure.
hurt themselves and that's it. Well, speaking of 12, like I guess I think they did that in Japan also, like or China with the Chinese zodiac. Like there's 12 animals, and I guess it's a timekeeping table. Um, so that makes sense as well.
What sign?
The
What sign are you in normal astrology?
what side of my what?
What sign are you in like normal astrology?
Oh, I am a Sagittarius. I was born in December, and then like the year I'm year of the horse. I was born
All
in
right, all right.
1990. Born in
I'm a big
1990.
fan of Sagittarius. Okay, all right, good for you. So have
Cool.
you moved around a lot in your life?
Yeah. I was born in Peru, moved to New York. I was in the military, went all over the place. So I've been around like visited like maybe 15 different countries, 20 different countries, a lot of states.
Every Sag I know, they're all over the place. They've been all over the place.
Yeah, it's fun.
I
Uh,
married a Sag and he's a pilot and he's all over the place too.
nice. The-
So interesting. Yeah, I like that. Now let me ask you, do you have any Leos or Aries in your family?
I'm adopted, so I don't have
You're
anyone.
well, still though, we go to the parents. What are your parents? I'm just curious.
From like my biological parents
Well,
or the
both. I mean, do you
bio.
know your biological parents' birthday?
They're Peruvian. One of them's Inca Indian or part Inca Indian. So then I have a decent amount of that in me, and I think that's it. I haven't done like the 23andMe test. 'Cause I have like this wild theory, which I know is mostly not true, but it's a theory that you know how so it's like illegal to sell like human organs, but it's not illegal to sell animal organs. So
Yeah,
what scientists do is they're like, oh, hey, pigs are really close to us, genealogically, so we'll inject some pig fetuses with human DNA. When those pigs grow up, they could have organs that are compatible with humans, and we don't have to sell human organs on the black market. We could sell these pigs.
interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I have this theory that aliens do have done to us what we did to pigs, and they inject human fetuses with like alien DNA, and then that's why how some humans are just a little different. And that's like my theory. Like they took a woman that would not be missed, like a Peruvian woman, like in this third world country, like no family, whatever, injected her fetus with like some alien DNA, and then that is my theory. And if I take the 23andMe thing, then it'll ruin my theory. So I don't want it.
Oh, very interesting. And I mean, well, then they can't really measure what they don't know, right? So
Yeah,
like, and here's another thing. You can bet if you came up with some weird alien anomaly, they're not going to tell you. Oh, by the way, they're just going to send somebody to pick you up. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, but that's why I never took it either. I'm like, what if, you know what I mean? I am like a reincarnation of the, guy I channel or something like, and it comes, and besides, it's very interesting. Like if you ever have anyone in your family that does anything wrong and you've taken the DNA test, like they can find people through you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Which, I mean, hopefully nobody's doing something. You got to find them through that. But I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
I'm
know.
gonna tell you though, they're just gonna like file it
Report it to
away.
the government.
I was like, I had a producer come to me in an LA. I was lecturing back then on my book, and he said he worked for the government. This was so crazy. Okay. And this guy was like a straight line guy. He wasn't a freak in any way, had a good job. Like you could tell he was together. He wasn't like, I've met some spiritual people, like they tell you things and you're like, okay, was that just, was that an acid trip or something, But he said that he worked for the government and he worked with what was it? Where the black book where they have everyone's name in it that like has special things. And he said, you're in that book for having like, and I remember when I started channeling things, I did a lot of like, my angelic mentor is an American Indian. And I was doing a lot of like, just like, it felt like I was channeling a lot of old energy. I would like be like kind of vocalizing, like in the bathtub, usually just like I know this sounds really weird, but I'd just be going like moving energy through me for some reason. And I'd hear helicopters over my house all the time. And I used to think, and then of course this is just a theory, but then I found out I was in the book, and he goes all over the world and ghost busts like embassies and stuff. I'm like, they have you ghost busting embassies? He's like, yeah. And there's a whole alien section too, which I think now we're just finding out about, right? I mean, they're just admitting and showing like random full on ET pictures. And we're like, what? It's like, that's from the Pentagon. I think they can measure frequency. And I think I was putting off really high frequency and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. You know what I mean? Because there's machines that can do that, like the weather machines, and things like that.
Oh, like HARP?
Yeah, like HARP. And they'll put off like higher different frequencies. It's kind of like a dog can hear sounds that other people can't hear.
Yeah.
When you start hitting super high frequencies, I think they were picking up this energy source and couldn't figure out why is it coming out of some apartment. You know what I mean? Like it's not a government. So I do think they keep track of that. So I wouldn't do this.
Yeah, no, agreed. Because like there's so many things that I think my favorite thing, I'll get back to that in a second. My favorite thing that Trump did was in 2018, I think he signed an executive order saying, hey, the Navy has to release these videos of unidentified flying objects because
I didn't know we did that.
Yeah, it was great. So there's this video that the Navy took in like 2018 where there's a ship up here. It goes down like 300 feet into the water, underneath the water, and then it ascends back up, and then it disappears. And I was in the Air Force, and I was working on cargo aircraft, so like I've never seen anything like that. I talked to a couple of buddies, like, listen, just because UFO doesn't mean aliens, but if that's like a Chinese or a Russian ship that has that capabilities, like
that's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, I mean, or it could be us, and we don't want everyone to know it's us. We're saying, oh it's aliens. It could
like an Area 51
States posing as aliens, or China or Russia, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, I guess, one of ours if it was like from Area 51, experimental. I don't know. But I forgot. Oh yeah, so I was gonna say is I've seen enough videos of people like have you heard about that guy that built a car engine that ran on water?
I was in the rain. That's the other guy that won the scholarship with me. And if anyone out there can find him, because I think they killed him, I hate to say it. I won a scholarship for writing a movie that could somehow help the world. That's what we got scholarships for. He won his scholarship for somehow helping the world because he was in hydrogen energy. 1993, we were in the rainforest together and they were running cars off of water in Maui already. But I have not been able to find him since. I have not been. I mean, like, you know how like back in the day before internet and all of that and Facebook and all that, you couldn't find people, you couldn't just Google people, and now all of a sudden, and it's like, why can't I find this guy? He has an unusual name. Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. And his name's Rick Newsell anyway. And he was brilliant. But okay, tell me about the guy so they were doing that. I don't know if there was an engine that they created. Tell me about this with the engine.
Yeah, guy. It was this dude that he had built a water engine. I think it was published in like Popular Mechanics or something. I forget how long it was, like 20 something years ago. It was in the 90s. And then suddenly he's with his brother, I think, in his house. He starts drinking a glass of orange juice, chokes and dies. I like clearly you're not going to choke on liquid and die if nothing's blocking your airways. But so they're thinking like they poisoned them. They're thinking like because again that would disrupt the entire one, just the auto industry, and then gas and oil on top of that.
Oh yeah. And I mean,
So
let's face it, they just, in a day and age when everything's moving out of that, right? Like out of biofuels, they just made McCarthy put in, the rest of the Republicans made him put in like a couple billion into the, whatever government spending for biofuels. And
yeah,
it's like, no, not biofuels, for regular fuels. Like I'm in Texas right now. You know what I mean? It's like,
they,
if they're not doing oil and gas, nobody has a job. I have not met one person yet in Texas that does not work for the oil and gas. Like, I'm like, oh, that's what you're doing here. Okay, I get it. Because it's a swampland here. God bless it, but it's not Santa Monica. I'm sorry, I miss Santa Monica so much. It's I miss surfing and everything. But in any case, yeah, I know. I mean, I haven't been able to find my friend, and I'm like, did they kill him? I mean. Like,
I mean, they definitely don't want that technology getting out. So
let's
it's
go back to the
possible.
alien thing. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. If there had ever been an alien crash, say it was in Area 52, right? We might be able to reverse engineer that, like they reverse engineer drones and stuff that land in different places, right? I mean, if we had the technology, we might not have gotten it until now. Like, for instance, you know what I mean? We might not have had what we, I think it's the United States. I think we are totally acting like,
I hope
oh,
so.
look, it's not us. Like, who knows what this is, you know? And it's, I don't know. That's
Oh,
my,
I hope
you all
I
think
didn't
out
think of
there.
that scenario. I didn't think that that would be possible. But yeah, I guess so. You know, something happens in Roswell and, you know, like 50, 80 years ago, whatever. And then I think Bob Lazar had he was on Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking about something that he did in the 80s that we didn't have, like that technology they were experimenting on in the 80s wasn't like publicly knowledgeable or available until like 20 years later. So I guess
Right.
that is possible. I'm very curious to see like if aliens, if we were able to reverse engineer that ship, like what type of physics do they use? Like, do they use combustion engines? Do they use magnets? Do they use like what are the things that they're using?
They're using
I'm very,
algae too. I mean, and water, as you know. I
yeah.
mean, and then as we know, Tesla was running things off of like literally that orgone energy, that 99% space. It's not empty space, it's full of energy. And so Tesla was creating energy out of the energy of the space. So, yeah, he didn't last too long either. I don't know where all his books are, but it
Yeah,
cost a lot for a darn car.
so we're talking about aliens, and obviously one of the big theories out there is that aliens came down to separate parts of the Earth that had no contact with each other, and they all happened to build pyramids. Do you have any theories on the purpose of why the pyramids were built? Was it just like to showboat, saying, "Hey, this is awesome," or do you think it has deeper meaning because of the points on Earth where they are and all that?
Good question. Like the triangle imagery. First of all, I think the triangle, what is the message of the pyramids? The triangle is that, and this is my belief after, okay, just so you know, like I travel the dimensions. I am like, I channel up to the 8th dimension. There's 13th dimensions, but like, so the first dimension is a dot. The second dimension's a
A
straight line.
line. Yeah.
Okay. The third dimension is a triangle. Okay. That's the first time we can get in and take matter, because the triangle, once you have a triangle, the circle can form around it and be intact. Okay. And look what happens when you don't have a triangle, straight line. Okay. I've had two people had near death experiences next to me in the rainforest that my angel had to bring back. Believe me, because I didn't know what was going on. And it's like their frequency got so high, they literally straight line. They lost their, and that's why, like, I tell people, like, just because you can do DMT doesn't mean you should go in the step. Like, I'm from the American Indian, like, heritage up in upstate New York, like the Iroquois, the Mohawk, the Seneca, the Onondaga. It's like, they didn't go like see the great white spirit, without fasting, meditating, preparing them whole self, mind, body, spirit, to go literally connect with this higher frequency. Okay. So it's kind of like when you take DMT, dude, you are standing on the doorway of death. Like that, you are on the doorway of other dimensions. And it's like, if you can't hold your triangle, you're out the door. That's like people don't understand. It's like you might have a very good physical body. You might be 20, you know what I mean? You might even be very spiritual. But if the mental side of you can't handle what's happening, because when you do DMT, you see things that are alien. And that is not comforting at all. I don't like it at all. I did DMT one other time, and this is what I'm going to add to this whole thing, because that was the most important. And I talked to the Sphinx. And I wouldn't ever do DMT just to go run around in that world, because it is so disconcerting to have you ever done it?
I did the synthetic version where you take it looks like almost wood chips and you drink what's called almost like wine. And you take, and you feel really nauseous for 15 minutes. And then after that, then I feel like it had a very light effect because I didn't see anybody. I could close my eyes and I had X-ray vision because I could still see my hands. It was really weird.
Of course, the geometrics, right? The overlaying geometric things that look like DNA. Did you see that, where everything goes?
I didn't see that. I also saw, I can tell there was, reality. And then there was other stuff. It was almost like I was wearing a mixed reality headset because I could tell what was there, but then there was some stuff that clearly wasn't there, but I could still see it.
Right. I totally understand. Well, Terrence McKenna sent us ours, and we were in Topanga with a group of us, and we were all very spiritual, but everyone's playing didgeridoos and crystals and everything. And he instructed us to put a bright light in our face, do a half a hit of acid, which I would never do this again, by the way.
I love acid.
I want nothing to do with acid, but he said it helped increase the visuals. When doesn't it, right? But basically we had to have pads around us, and somebody had to sit behind the person that was going to smoke it. He sent us pure whatever, and we smoked it. And it was to face the bright light, smoke it, and just because what happened to the 8 people I was with was exactly the same. They'd start to take it, then they'd start to pass out, and he'd say the person has to push him up and say, do another one, because if you don't go deep enough, you can have an inner journey, which can go hell, childhood trauma or whatever. It's like, no, I don't want that. You know what I mean? But so the other person's supposed to keep you up so you can get the second hit. At that point, you literally pass out cold for 10 minutes. And I watched some of my closest friends go through this experience, and one thing they all went through, and I knew they weren't lying, and they were like my one girlfriend, she's like, oh, and she's on the ground, she's like, hi, oh my God, yes, I want to go, and blah, blah, blah. And then she comes back and she's like, oh my God, all these multicolored mermaids, I went under, they all went, oh, you can see us, Joanne. Yes. And they all dove inside her and flew her over the ocean. And I was like, she's under, and she's going, yes, oh my God. It's having the best time. And everyone that went under, there were other beings there that were like, oh, good. It's like you showed up at the party finally. And they're like, oh, man, you can see us now. It's like they know, but the disc part, it's a little just are they always watching when I'm in the toilet? Because I'm telling you, at night when I'm at the toilet, it's always when I have people showing up, all my dead friends. I'm like, do you have to show up when I'm naked at the toilet? Just give me a little dignity here. But they all have one thing I noticed with all the beings not on Earth is that they have a lot better sense of humor, and they really love to make us the butt of the joke. Almost always I'll be like, yeah, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I'm the butt of the joke. It's you really better take yourself not too seriously. I have it's been a real thing. Anyway, the Sphinx, I'm just going to say this story because, again, I always look back and be like, if I ever run for politics, this is what they're putting up on the screen. freaky chick with like space lasers. No, honestly, what happened was, and this is what I know of the Sphinx, and this is really kind of amazing. I did the DMT again because the first time I did it, I didn't get enough and I had a really bad trip. So I went back a couple days later to Topanga with my girlfriend, and this time the Sphinx came to me. And it was so weird. And again, it was before the internet, you know, and he showed me this thing on the side of his ear, like it kind of went in like a CSI, like doo, doo, doo. And it was before CSI too. And he showed me like this lever on the inside of the ear. And it was, he had the nose too. It wasn't broken off. So it was like pre-break off. And the first thing he said to me, I'm your ally. And here's me. I'm totally on DMT, but I'm thinking, that sounds good for me, that the Sphinx is my ally. And I'm thinking, what can the Sphinx do for me? You know, like, but anyway, I still haven't figured that out. But in any case, he then went and showed me the entire chest of the Sphinx opened up. Okay. Inside it was literally like, it looked like a Star Trek set or something. The seats, pews, like people were looking to get on a Disney line or Disney, you know, attraction. Everyone's sitting and they were literally beaming up out of the Sphinx. And I was like, whoa. Okay, so this is what happened after that. Years later, a couple years later, the Egyptian people, now you got to know this was pre-internet, right? So I'm just like, okay, that's interesting. That could be true. A couple years later, the Egyptian government finds that the Sphinx actually has a big thing inside its chest. Okay. They open it up. Nobody's been in it. We still don't know what's in it. I was like, I got to get over there. Because here's the deal when it comes to like, everything's a frequency, right? Like the lady that decoded the hieroglyphics in the Mayan hieroglyphics, her name's Linda Sheely. Well, at that time, nobody knew how to read the Mayan runes. I think it was the early 80s. And she was an art student from Austin. And she happened to go on vacation. And she was like looking at the hieroglyphics. And all of a sudden, boom, decoded all the hieroglyphics. And now she's the expert on the hieroglyphics. So when you're the right key to fit the whole of information, you're going to get it. And they are not going to give you high frequency information. Like, that's why I'm like, I get worried because high frequency information, like high frequencies also go along with high consciousness, which goes along with like things like love and loyalty and compassion. It doesn't go along with greed and selfishness and war. So they're never going to unlock that. You know what I mean? They need your heart to unlock pure, because what they say is like literally they won't even let, Earth is supposed to go online and they're not letting us because we're a warring mess. So they've been trying to wait for the like, oh, I've got something to go on about that, but let me finish this, because then finally with the pyramid, I forgot this. The very next day after I had this interaction with the Sphinx, I was working at a bookstore in Malibu part-time. It was like some girl fiction show. And I'm looking for something, anything to do with the pyramids and like using the Sphinx, you know, because I'm bored. And I'm like, oh God, you know, in walks this guy. He's like, do you have any books on the Sphinx? And I'm like, no, but if I did, I would be reading it right now. He goes, yeah, I'm looking for this new book all out by the Sphinx by this guy named John Alexander West. Okay, that's my last name, West. And I'm like, or John Anthony West. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's the new information? He goes, well, he's I don't know what he was, a geologist or something. Basically, he went down to visit, right? And before this guy went and did the testing, basically all the pyramids have weathering from 1,000 years of sand hitting them, right? So all the weathering on the, you know, stones and stuff is from sand and wind. He tested the Sphinx. The Sphinx has water weathering from, it was standing when there were 1,000 straight years of water.
Yeah.
So it predated the Sphinx 3 million years earlier than the pyramids.
It was 3 million?
3 million years earlier than.
That's a long time.
So yeah, like people.
Are you sure 3 million? Like 3 million, like
I believe
3 and then 6 zeros.
That you know what? I mean, 3,000 sounds more doable. But was it 3,000 years ago? There was 1,000 years of rain. I don't think so.
Could be 30,000 years ago.
A long darn time ago, rain.
300,000 years ago.
And there was a lot of rain, and so basically, I think that your alien groups at that time, it was like the first like airport at Key West or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because here's what my understanding is also is like we are. They say the spirits in other dimensions when they meet us, like they literally bow to us. They like we're badasses for going to Earth. And let me explain. If we were sending like when we send out a spaceship, what did we get to Mars? Right? Maybe. All right. Imagine that we went to Pluto, right? And we were the astronauts that went to Pluto, the furthest away, right? So bad that you can barely communicate. You know what I mean? You might not get back, kind of thing. That's how they see us in the third dimension, that we are the highest spirits and we pushed ourselves into the first dimension where we could take a body. And we're dealing with like taxes, gravity, death, broken hearts. You know what I mean? It's just like feelings, you know? And so they see us as like groundbreaking, like courage, like they bow to us like we're like SEAL Team 6 or something. And we went out. No kidding. And I'm like, you're right. We are badass. But I will tell you one thing. There's not too many water planets out there. And I think that's
True.
one of the big secrets is like I think we're very, very lucky.
Yeah, especially considering we're like 70% water ourselves. That's probably makes us pretty special. Oh, I would hope. But I want to go over a couple things. The beings that people say, I feel like, you know how like that quote, like when you cannot hear what you're not ready for, right? I know it's a really bad version of the quote. So I was in Vegas like a month and a half ago, and I was on a bunch of acid, and it was actually my first like bad experience with that. I've only had good experiences, and it started off bad, but ended up really good. I was there with a couple of friends, and I was like forgetting who my friends were. And this one guy, Mike, that I served with and known for 10 years, I was forgetting him as I was like standing there with him in Vegas. His wife was there, my other friend was there, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm Randy Chavez. I used to serve with this guy. I was in the military, I'm in finance, I'm a YouTuber. But I was like forgetting who I was, and I was forgetting who he was. So I was like, listen, they're about to go to Fremont Street, and I was like, I feel really weird. The girl I was with escorted me up to the room, and I was like, I had to like lay down. I kept looking at like my tattoo, my wallet, my water, and like my phone. I was like, okay, just making sure everything's that I was like trying to hold on to reality. And then in this trip, I said, I guess I convinced myself saying, okay, I will only figure things out when I'm ready for it. And then I thought that I was again like on this mixed reality headset, and I was living in this thing called Earth. And what I was actually doing is, I guess I had spent 45 minutes or an hour. I guess I was like in Yale, like some prestigious like university. I was like, guys, this is a crazy experience. We're gonna be so freaking rich. Like we're gonna be billionaires because I had like all like the. It just I don't know. I goes to show that this might be computer code. Like this all just might. And I was talking to people, and they were talking to me, and it's like, I'll keep the military stuff in, keep this in. I don't know why I was poor for so long. Definitely take that out. Give me, just give me this level. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. So I had, so I definitely believe in those beings. I couldn't see them though. They were voices because again, I had on this mixed reality headset, or I thought I did. And I was I had like one foot in one reality and one in the other. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned the 13th dimension. And I've tried to do the math for it, or tried to study the math for it, and I feel like I can only get to like the only try to imagine like the 11th dimension, because like you have you were going like there's one point that's one, there's a line that's two, we're like the fourth dimension could be considered time, and in the same way that you could hop from from one point in one dimension to another point on the second dimension, you have to hop through the third dimension. So figure that we could do that hopping through one point in time to another point in time. You have to hop through the fifth dimension. So how does one get to a 13th dimension? Because I feel like that goes from I can only imagine up to the 11th. Like I can't.
Well, the 13th dimension's in us.
Oh,
It's space. The 13th dimension is everything. The 13th dimension is all of it. It's the creative frequency that is the space that makes up 99% of everything. Everything. So You know, it was shown to me in this way, and it made a lot of sense. And I'm not saying this is the truth, because I think, you know, people that are gifted and getting things on the other side, it's good to have what other people say too, because you're mapping a land kind of like that you can't really see. But what was been shown to me is that there's the uneven dimensions, and the even dimensions are very different. Like the even dimensions are kind of like, well, you've got, let me see. The second dimension, I think is, wait, a dot. It's a line.
Yeah, it's a line.
The fourth dimension's time. The sixth dimension, I believe, is geometry. The eighth dimension is art and music. Okay. So when you start thinking of then in the uneven dimensions, such as the third dimension, fifth dimension, seventh dimension, where you have a lot of beings traveled from, those are free will zones where we get to paint with all the things that are in the universal structure of matter, right? And so I channel from the eighth dimension. I channel, that's where, you know, when I started channeling White Eagle, it always came out White Eagle, White Eagle, White Eagle. And then I started to abbreviate it to we. And then I realized I was dealing with a whole like soul group. And the soul group was on the eighth dimension, which is angelic, because it doesn't change. You know what I mean? We do need constants to build our foundation on that never change, you know, and that we can play and work with. So I would say to what you're saying, once you get on a hallucinogen, you're very often bridging the fourth dimension. Well, the fourth dimension's time. So once you get past on the fourth dimension, you're in the circle, okay? And then you can go back and forth anywhere on the circle. You're talking about time jumping from through the lines of geometry.
Yeah, so there's if you take oh god, is this a notepad? Yeah.
No,
So if you take,
you know, I what you're saying this to me, and I'm realizing I saw a bunch of lines like that when I was on the top of the pyramids in the Mayan ruins. It's like they overlaid, like it looked like geometry and lines, and now I'm wondering. I didn't know. I thought they were showing me that they brought the energy. I thought they look. I think I don't know if they're wormholes or some kind of holes, like, but there is an ability to go through there. And I don't know, maybe it's what you're talking about. Tell me what you're talking about.
All right, so picture here's one line, and then here's a branch off that line. Let's say you want to go from one point to the other. How do you do that without lifting out of the page? Well, you have to crumple the page up, and if you crumple the page up enough, the two lines can touch. And when the two lines touch, you can poke a hole through it, and you're essentially going through the third dimension to hop from one point in time in the second dimension to another point in the second dimension.
Okay.
So if you want to hop through,
you can also draw a circle around those three lines, right? And make a circle out of those destinations, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to the sign, then you're jumping into the wheel of immortality, which is the fourth dimension, and the wheel of time. So you can go back and forth anywhere on that, not just on the points.
Correct. But I just use that as an example. So if we want to move from one point in time again, time is the fourth dimension. So if we want to move from one point in time to another point in time, you would have to fold through the fifth dimension, and then you can go from one point to the other. I feel like that's the same as what you're doing here. You're just doing it with a different dimension.
Why do you think you have to fold through the fifth dimension?
So my mind,
you may be right. I'm not saying you're not right, because I'm thinking maybe that's one of the problems, because we know we can take people, we just can't get them out on the other side, right? So we know we can take somebody in third dimension or a bird or something and send it through. We just can't get it out, which means if the fourth dimension is time, so it's a foundation, we're trying to send you, like you're saying, from the third to the fifth, which is another free will zone where you can take a body, right? So you just can't send it to the fourth, because then you're in spirit form. The minute you take a body, you are then in the fifth or a higher or an odd dimension. So you would say that is the problem, though. We can't get out on the fifth dimensional side with our body yet. At least science hasn't shown that we can.
So so the beings that you had talked to, like the Sphinx, like what dimension was that in that you were able to see? Like, and the people that took the DMT that are just like, oh, these people showed me, and they're like, oh my God, you're here, you're welcome to the party.
Right. I think, well, that's very interesting. Now, the Sphinx, now that might, I feel like sometimes, when you go to measure something that's above you, like dolphins' intelligence, you're like, how do you measure intelligence that may be higher than yours?
A
I
lot of
feel like the Sphinx was definitely that 10th dimension, or 12th dimensional being, and a foundation. Like he was trying to explain something to me that was foundational on DMT. And then he showed up as a being, but how do I explain this? The angels all are up on the 8th dimension too, like that are sending, like it's a very beautiful dimension. So they show up as not human, like they don't have as much free will. Like they're not allowed to come down and mess around with us unless we ask them to. You know what I mean? Like they can't come down and make our life better because we're supposed to be making choices and learning and all that stuff. We're in a free will zone. So what were we getting at?
So I was talking about like string theory, where the quantum physics tells us the subatomic particles that make up our dimension are just derived from vibrations in like the seventh, and that's what it is. So when we're talking about like 12th dimensions, I can only imagine, and I'm only thinking of 11, because once you get to, let's say we are, again, this third dimension.
You're saying scientifically you're getting the 11th.
Yeah, I don't know how to get past that, because at some point you have every single. All right, so one point is one universe, another point is another universe. You draw a line to them. You can go, if you believe in the many worlds theory, like Copenhagen interpretation, which is like there's only one universe and that's it. I think that's bullshit. But the many worlds theory is that if you have multiple different universes. So if you have one universe over here and there's another universe over there, it's like that Schrodinger's cat. You put a cat in a box.
Yeah, I know. Maybe tell the audience though, because it is a really good.
Okay, so Schrodinger's cat is when you put a cat in a box with a Geiger counter and like a poison. If the Geiger counter goes off, it releases the poison, and then the cat will either die or not die. So you don't know if the Geiger counter went off. So if you open the box, before you open the box, the cat is both dead and alive. When you open the box and you find out, hey, cat's alive, cool. That branches off into another universe where the cat is dead. And there are, in the many worlds theory, there are every single possibility that could be out there is out there. There's
like, that movie, the Oscar-winning movie, Everything All at Once.
Oh, does that
everything was possible?
Does that talk about this? I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Pretty much what happens is that's exactly what happens. And it's interesting because in the end, they said it was a metaphor for the internet because, well, the person that's supposed to represent the bad guy has figured out how to enter any dimension, any world, at any time. And she's bored because she can do anything at any time. It's like it's been too many lifetimes of having it all. And they equated it kind of to like the internet, where now like you can just, go to Peru on a button and watch some guy on YouTube for 2 hours, take you everywhere you wanted to go. It's like, well, I don't really have to go, it's like,
that's true.
So that's what it was all about. Okay. Well, let me see how this fits into your thing. So I know string theory, but I'm not an expert in it. Like you seem to know a lot.
I don't think anyone's an expert in it. It's really, really difficult. It's really hard.
Tell me, like how the circle, like, let me just throw the circles in. Okay. And okay. So what they showed me is like, if you take, okay. Oh, I wrote this in my book. I channeled it. I'll have to, something about if you take 12 three-dimensional balls, right? You now have a representation of the universe. In the center of those 12 three-dimensional balls, there will it creates another ball, the exact same size as them, but it's space. So that's the 12th dimension, because if you put the mirror up to it, the other side of that is it's just space. If you see space and matter, it's 12 3D balls connected with the 13th in the center, which is the info outfo kind of thing. And which is why the 12th and 13th was always like why Jesus was the 12 apostles and Jesus, or why was, Arthur, why were there 12 knights of the round table? And think about that round table. So I think something about that is going, because we are in a triangle dimension that's very important to know with your mind, body, spirit. But the circle, then you do surround the triangle, and the circle is the first time you can actually have life. You cannot have life without a beating. Every amoeba, everything starts with a circle. So I'm just throwing that into the string theory. How would that work with your?
I have no idea. That is,
Well, because
I
if
guess
we're made of space, couldn't we just go through the space? I'm saying, you know what I mean? So if we've got 12 three-dimensional balls, and I'm just throwing this out here. I have no idea. I'm just like off the top of my head. And we take form once we can get in a third dimensional triangle form, right? Right. So then couldn't we just access any of those through the space, because we're 99.99% space? So maybe what we're jumping through is our own space.
I guess that's possible.
I don't know. But then compiling, getting us out the other side the same way. I know I did it once under hypnotherapy, but I don't know how to do it again.
Try hypnotherapy again and see, and like.
No, I did. And you know, it's really interesting. I can't seem to get back to it. It was like, it was one of the first times, again, it was like, they took me back to all these past lives. And at that time, I didn't even believe in a past life. I was trying to get through some incident in my childhood. And the dude just like, I'm in California, and he's like, well, let's go to your past life, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, 8-track cassette, you know what I mean? I'm talking like a guy, and I'm telling him I'm up in the gold rush and it's like 1900 or something. It's like, well, I ended up going like, because he kept saying, what happened to you in your youth is so unusual. I think it came from another life. Well, I didn't expect him to be taking me to past lives, and under hypnosis, I'm getting memories just like I did from my own life. You know what I mean? And that's what was disconcerting. It's like, I know that one's true. And yet I'm getting memories from the supposed other life exactly the same way. So that kind of has to be true. And there was a lifetime that I got into a little trouble. And the weird thing was, you know, he took me through this very interesting thing. It's like every lifetime he would be like, start out with like, take you to when you were a child, because your early childhood really imprints you like with a frequency, right? And then middle life, what was going on in your middle life? And then that imprints you. And then how do you leave your body imprint you? Like for instance, if it's tragic, you could come in still bothered child or something with it. We hear a lot of kids talk about that, you know, that were like in wars or something and think they're reincarnated, like where they're afraid of things that like were PTSD from another lifetime in a war. So those are very important. So he took me through those every lifetime. And this one, I didn't age. I couldn't get him to take me under hypnosis after doing 20 different past lives. All of a sudden, I have no childhood and I have no future. And he keeps saying, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 25 and I'm magical. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do this and I do this. And I'm saying, I'm like a little terror pretty much. I mean, I wasn't really killing anyone or anything, but I was pretty much like, had way too much power for someone at my time, you know, and I wasn't aging. And he couldn't take me back to a birth or any time where I aged. And every time he asked me, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 25. And then finally he said, okay, let's go to the circumstances of your death. And I said, oh, this is at me listening to this on 8-track afterwards, right? And I go, oh, I don't die. And he's like, okay. And later he said to me, never in all of his practice have he ever heard any of this craziness before, right? He goes, if you don't die, I'm hearing him on the tape, like, how do you leave this lifetime? I said, oh, a big hole opens up and I jump through it.
So there's something called quantum immortality. Have you ever heard of that?
No, but here, I want you to tell me what it is, because here's the other disconcerting thing about it. Every lifetime that I went to, I was a guy, a girl, I was a fat entertainer with red hair, like in London, blah, blah, blah. But in this lifetime, I looked exactly like me. And I'm like, I'm me. And I'm like going, did I jump through to here? Like, I'm like, you know, so I'm like, what is that? Like, of all those, like he had never heard anyone not die. He'd never heard anyone not age. He never heard anyone being themselves in another lifetime or looking like themselves in another lifetime. So what are you talking about?
So quantum immortality is this theory that it does go with the many worlds theory that you know, multiple different universes and there's multiple different yous. And if you go and you die in one universe, your consciousness uh, teleports somehow through time and space, through another dimension, whatever dimension it is, into the body you are now. And my theory on that is there's a subreddit called Glitch in the Matrix. Have you ever gone on that?
No.
So you go on Reddit and just type in Glitch in the Matrix, it'll come right up. And there's people that go and say like, "Hey, I've died. I was moving something. I was driving and I died, and then suddenly I go back into like 1 minute. I'm in my car again. 1 minute before I die, I pull off the road. What exactly happened. And there's like dozens of stories like that.
Right, right. I've heard those stories where they got pulled out where they didn't even feel the pain almost. Like, have you heard those stories where they
Yeah,
never felt the pain of the impact, even though their body was all like, a mess later?
yeah. And it goes from like it's not just one type of people. You have like kids like, oh, I was spinning a sign as cash for gold, and then a truck hit me and I died, and then suddenly I was back, and then I moved away from the pole to catch my breath, and then the truck hit the pole like where I was. And there's other guys that are just like there's other girls that are just saying like I fell in the tub and I broke my neck, and then I woke up in bed again. My brother came in, asked me to give him a ride. Like the same exact thing happened. The tub was like the same way. So it's like all of these different people and all of them from all walks of life, and they're all experiencing kind of the same thing. So
Interesting.
there's a theory that in quantum immortality, you don't die, you live all of these different lives, and then you get transported. And that's why some things are a little different. That's why you say like, "Hey, wasn't did you always work there?" Or like, "I remember Bernstein and not Berenstein Bears," that type of thing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. Yes, that could be it. Well, I mean, we're spirits in these bodies. So, and the spirits go. They don't, they're only here because they're here. Like my dead girlfriend said, it's dying's just like waking up from a dream, Lenny. She's like, and the only earth was the dream. And you look back and you're like, whoa, what a ride that was.
Yeah.
So and she got taken out very young at 30, like by a car accident. And it's like there was no rhyme or reason to it. And it's just like, and it was really hard for us to deal with. And it's like, it was nice to hear that message from the other side. And I think that's kind of what it is. We just transfer our spirits like consciousness,
Yeah.
because consciousness, it's not made of matter, right?
I don't think so. I mean, you can't. I mean, to try to store, let's say, human consciousness, like our brains are so big, especially people that are extraordinarily intelligent, they have
What
denser
makes you think
brains.
the brain has the consciousness?
You would have to have like 15 petabytes of storage, and you would have to like that would cost million. Like I don't think there's anything like that can exist that can store all of
I'm
that.
talking
So
about science and I'm talking about spirit. It's like
yeah,
you're not going to be able to explain spirit in the third dimension, except like to the certain point where science can't explain it anymore. And they're like, oh, there's God in there someplace. Or where like, the same thing with like spirit, oh, I need to get to a doctor in some Western medicine at some point. It's like, um, the consciousness is interesting. They said we have another brain in our heart, literally a mini brain in our heart. Look it
I
up.
believe that. Yeah.
And I think that's where consciousness is stored, because when you have a conscious intelligence, it's heart filled. You care about other people, you care about animals, you care about, whatever you care. And that is high consciousness. You know what I mean? Low consciousness is the bumbling idiot that like doesn't know like what they're doing and how they're creating chaos wherever they go. But once you get conscious and realize killing something creates chaos in their family line, you know what I mean? Even if it's, it's like it's a consciousness, like
Yeah.
an emotional intelligence, if you will, like, whether you can hurt somebody's feeling or you can make their day by how like you talk to them or make them feel. I don't think that's a mental thing.
Oh, well, I think it can like so I in my experience with acid were mostly positive, and I don't know, whenever I'm on it, I just want to love people. I just want to like give people a hug and have a drink with them, listen to good music.
You're in a
There's
higher frequency. That's what it is.
yeah, there's
You're
no bad feelings. There's no everything's beautiful, everything's numbers and math and just and feeling like there's no like I don't know like there's a Lindsey Sterling, she's a violinist,
I know.
and Amy Lee from Evanescence. They did a concert one day at Jones Beach together, and I was with a friend. We were on acid, and just it was the light rain, and you heard it, and it was beautiful, and it was numbers, but it was just that feeling of like the energy that was there. Like sporting events where like someone scores like a half court shot at the buzzer, like oh! Like that positive flow of energy. You felt
Yeah,
that there.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the universal law of energy is like does attract like. But the other part of that people don't often get is like it's not like once you get down to like because we're all just floating energetic waves in space, right? That's what we are. We're just floating waves. What they don't understand is the frequency is not the rate of speed like it hurts, like we do on an earthly realm. The hurt like a frequency in a universal term represents the amount of consciousness a wave is holding, right? So you'll know when you meet people, it's our sixth sense to decode these frequencies, by the way. So it's like you'll meet people right away and you'll be like, they can be wearing an outfit that you don't even know what they are. But you can feel, I like this person, I don't like this person. Like right away, you can feel that energy, right? Or like,
Yeah.
especially a bad energy. Like this person might be all dressed up, ready to go, but I don't want anything to do with like, that's Ted Cruz for me. I'm like, please just take that face away. Hillary Clinton too. I'm like, oh God, no, just take her off the screen. I don't know. I don't even know what her politics are. I just can't stand it for energy. But then there's other people right away. You're just like, you love them, like Betty White or Tom Hanks or something, you know? And it's like, though, because we're reading their frequencies. And what that means, I owned a restaurant in Malibu, and I can tell you, Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks. He comes in, he plays with everybody's babies, he talks to everybody. He's the nicest guy in the world. And then you see him scream and say, well, why do I like Tom Hanks so much? He is a nice guy. He's a Canadian, for Pete's sake. You know what I mean? He drives around in a VW van and just like sweet as pie, you know? And it's like those good energies, that's the consciousness. We're feeling their frequency. So when you realize that frequencies are like everything in the universe has a frequency, then things, events, and feelings also have frequencies. So then we start talking about, like in my lectures, I used to be like, okay, if we're saying a 1 on a level incident is a death incident, right? Or like, you know, what are other things that are on a 1 that are the worst frequency in the world that could happen? And I'll have people talk about drug addiction, you know, a broken heart, you know, losing a loved one, things like this, right? And then I'll say, okay, now let's go to the top. Let's go to the higher frequencies. Oh, I like a good movie on Netflix and a glass of wine. Great, you're at an 8. You know what I mean? Oh, I like a good bath. I like to make dinner for my mom. Oh, you're at a 10. Oh, little kids laughing and birds tweeting. Oh, you're in the 13th. You're in the universal now, right? Yeah. So when you once you're up there also though, once you realize is up there is where success is and money is and falling in love in and also a harmonized body. You're worried about your weight or your knees? First of all, I really want you, the first thing psychically I got for you, if you haven't, please watch the Earthing movie. Have you seen it?
The what movie?
Earthing. You're going to blow your mind as a science guy.
I love that.
It's called Earthing. It's for free on YouTube. You can all get it. And basically, this guy was a billionaire cable guy, and he got diagnosed with something, and they couldn't cure it. And he was about to die, gave all his money away already to his kids and all the people that were going to inherit. And he happened to be sitting on a park bench near a college, and he saw the kids coming out of college. And all of a sudden, and this is how it goes with psychic vision. It's very interesting that he got it just like this. All he could see was a sea of whites of the bottoms of the sneakers, right? And he thought to himself, wow, since rubber came out, nobody is grounded anymore because we all walk around with rubber on our feet, okay? Yeah. And being a cable guy, he knew that if something's not grounded, you don't get a full circuit. You do.
Oh,
yeah, it's got, okay, so you know the 3 prongs in a socket, right? The 3-prong socket, right? The socket, what am I talking about? Okay, the bottom one, the little bottom little hole that's not like the two ones are kind of like slits and the bottom one's a hole, right? That bottom hole is the grounding hole. That takes you right down to the earth. That's because if you don't have that grounding hole, we can take planes out of the sky watching TV. It'll literally send out like weird frequencies and stuff. That's how important it is to ground something, okay? But we're not grounded. So he starts doing experiments with doctors in San Diego. If you put your feet in the grass for an hour, you cut inflammation in your body by half. There is no medicine that can do this. This is all scientific. Go watch it, because I'm thinking with your knees and everything, please get yourself, like there's something called a grounding mat. In fact, it's right here. I always have one. I have one on my bed. It's like this, just this thin little thing, right? And pretty much, I think it has copper inside of it, and it plugs into the bottom hole of a socket. And it's the same thing. If you put your feet on it, you are directly grounded through the socket hole. So you can put it under your desk and stuff, you know, and ground it, because you just can't always get out and put your feet in the ground, you know, it's snowing or whatever. And I would love for you to check out this movie and get back to me. I think you're going to blow your mind with the.
I am quite interested in that, because that's, I mean, I wonder if it, I mean, you don't want to do it if you have like lacerations on your feet, because then, you know, you have parasites get in there. But yeah, if your feet are fine and there's no, I wonder if it works better if you don't have calluses, or if it works less if you have a bunch of calluses on your feet, because then
you can take this grounding mat and lay it. I put it underneath my sheet. I sleep on it every night.
Yeah.
And you know the weird thing is, I started having dreams again after years of not having dreams. I think it put me into a deeper. It's so. I'm telling you, it seems like, you know, it seems like go put your feet in the grass kind of thing. But when they start going to the doctors and doing studies, like this one mother found that like she had a kid, a little baby girl that was always having epileptic attacks. And she told the doctor the only time she's fine is when we're out on the ground together, when we're on the grass together. And so the doctor had just started working with this thing, and he told her, and she was like, I think she was like 80 pounds overweight too from the pregnancy or something. He said, take her out. He gave her a diagnosis of getting on the grass every day, because they were in California, right? And he said, and you too, he goes, lay down as much as you can, you know, like on the grass. She lost 60 pounds in a few months. Nice. And see, I think what's happening is we're not completing our circuit, you know, our natural circuit of wellness that our body, like our default thing is perfection, right? We're born like the jaguar, perfect, to be sleek and agile. We just get out of that. We slide out of our perfection, but our default is that. And like, and, you know, I also wrote a diet book because I had a Taoist chef, and it really changed my life when my ex-husband, when we had a commune, when he had the money from the old music industry, when people used to make money. Anyway, the Taoists, the way they eat is all about harmonizing the body. And it's very interesting. And it's like, and I learned then, like, a lot of people think their body's their enemy, but your body has an intelligence too, right? Mind, body, spirit. Yeah. The body has an intelligence all its own. And I'll tell you what, it wants survival of the fittest as much as you do. And that does not come with 40 pounds overweight and bad knees, right? It wants you to be perfect, you know? So I'm just saying, it will do miraculous things to help you get back to that divine center point to flourish. So I always tell people, wait, your default is perfection. If you're outside of that perfection, you just have to let go of the whatever's holding you out from your natural. But I think grounding is a big piece of that. I really do. Anyone who hears this, I think it's a gift from God. My husband has really bad medical problems, and his fingers would get so inflamed, they would literally swell up like sausages so badly to the point like rheumatoid, like so bad. And ever since he's been on the grounding mat, that has not happened to him. That we got off of sugar, so that was also a really big
that probably helps a lot. Yeah. No. Okay, so I know we originally only want to go for an hour, so we'll do a lightning round. I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay. Oh yeah, I know. I have an audition, a Hollywood audition actually.
Okay, we'll go quick then. All right. Harry Potter. You excited for the new series that's going to come out on HBO?
I can't wait. I want a part. I want to play McGonagall.
I would love to play Brown Snape. if we're all being like woke and be like
Yeah.
any
Who do
race
you
can
want to
play
play?
any, huh?
Who do you want to play? Snape?
Snape. I want to be brown Snape. I just want to, because if I feel like I got the longer hair for it, so I can go and
Oh, brown Snape, you're so funny. You're so hilarious. Well, they definitely need more diversification like that. I mean, that was one of the things she really got rode over for. So go for it. You'd be a
I'm gonna
great
go for it. Okay. I had a
place
role.
Snape too.
I just started getting into acting. I just had a role in this pilot called Looks Can Kill recently.
You did?
It was just like an extra, but I have Darcy Donovan's movie later this year. There's a movie called Feeling Manhattan, which is going to be from later this year, so I'll be part of that. So I have a lot of things in the fire. I just haven't done. None of them come out yet. Okay, so good with Harry Potter. Other
Harry
lightning
Potter.
round. Yeah.
Harry Potter. I wrote a Harry Potter spell book.
Oh
And
my God, that's amazing.
yeah, and it's got all the spells in it and the wand, and how to pronounce them. And then it's got a bunch of recipes from Hogwarts and stuff. But then it has just very basic how to use frequencies to manifest magic in your real life, not just like throwing out Accio this and Accio that, but actually manifest what you want. So
You would love my friend Fanny. She's I don't know if you've seen the Fantastic Beasts movies.
oh yeah,
She's Mrs. Goldstein. She's the kid's mom.
Mrs. Goldstein. I
Yeah,
don't think I saw the last one. She's not on it till the
she's in
last
the
one.
it's the first one. I have to find
It
it to
is?
see. Yeah, she's like two of the kids' moms. Let me
Queenie
see.
and the
Yeah,
other.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Mrs. Goldstein.
Awesome. Oh my God. What a dream. What a
Yeah,
dream.
she's awesome too. She's so chill.
Okay, if
Uh,
you find out the
yeah,
casting directors for this, you got to let me know because I totally want to play McGonagall because I think Maggie May, is she still living? I mean, she'd probably want to play it herself, Maggie Smith, if she's around, but
yeah.
Tolteri, Petrificus, Tolteri, what is that? What is it?
Tripicus totalis.
Yes, I
Oh,
love that one.
speaking of the Harry Potter, I don't know. Have you been to Harry Potter World?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding me? I've got my Hufflepuff cake. Oh, I love that. Oh, so
Yeah, I
some
got Lucius
Borgans.
Malfoy's cane.
You went to Orlando, Burks and Borgans, right?
Heck
Because
yeah,
that's
I did.
Lucius Malfoy's, right?
So this is from the I went in 2019, which was wild. I went with a friend, the same one I went to the Lindsay Sterling concert with, and I
Orlando, or did you
did I go
Hollywood?
what?
Did you go to Orlando or
Yeah,
Hollywood?
yeah, Orlando both times.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Orlando, like I got a Donkey Kong tattoo.
Oh,
Like what
cool.
I was on after that as well, which was
Um,
great. The first time I went in 2016 with my friend Kim, we had we wound up going the day after the guy that played Snape had died,
oh no.
and we went and we got a we just went there, and in the potions classroom, like at Hogwarts, everyone was putting lilies, like the flowers, because Snape was taught potions and he loved Lily Potter, and I was like, oh my God, I was like fucking crying. I was like,
Am I crying with my mask on at Universal?
so yeah, that was the
Oh my, that's the coolest one ever, though. Like that is the best one. See, that's what I miss. I've been to Hollywood too, but Berkson, they don't have like Berkson. They only have Diagon Alley. They don't have
they don't have Hogsmeade.
Hogsmeade. And it's like so you don't get the like Berks and Borgin and everything, and that's the best. I love those stores.
I wasn't brave enough to try every flavor beans, but I was brave enough to put I wore some cargo pants and I snuck a bunch of those little tiny airplane alcohols in. So when I got like the butterbeer, I was just be putting all the liquor in the butterbeer. It was great. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Butterbeer definitely needs some alcohol in it. Like
Yeah.
what'd you put in it? Like Fireball or something?
No, I was putting in vodka, I was putting in whiskey, I was putting in it's mixing. You can get it both cold and hot. So you could, yeah, it's pretty dope.
Love that. So I'm taking it you're a Slytherin.
Yes, I'm a Slytherin. You said Hufflepuff?
Yeah, my whole pods, we're all Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff Puff Pass. I think that's what it is. But we all have the capes, we all go together, and they're always like, just go on the fast lane, because we're like all yeah.
That's so great.
Little cape love. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so anything you wanted to ask me before we end? Anything you wanted to go over and tell people before we bounce?
No, I mean, I guess I have a website, morningmayan.com. I have a big, YouTube channel called Morning Mayan. Because when I started, I was doing stuff mostly about the Mayans, and I moved into more manifesting books, and then more conspiracy stuff. I think I scrubbed a bunch of that though after, I don't know, it seemed dated, but yeah, you can get all my books on Amazon. I have tons of them. I also work one-on-one sometimes with people or do tarot card readings if you just want a little like, thanks. Yeah. And that's basically it. Yeah. If you really want to start with one book, I also have a witch, like a modern witch book, which is really good because it also, it like, if you're a Catholic, it won't bother you because I use the angels and Jesus also because I don't think.
Whoa, that's a big book.
Huh?
I said, whoa, it's a big book.
Yeah, it's a big book. Lots of spells, lots of things to do. But this is it, the frequency. If you guys don't know or want to know about how the law of universal frequency works, your sixth sense, and then how to use things to manifest, which I've done my whole life. My restaurant, I manifested with no money. Like everything I've manifested. I'm about to manifest it. Job. I really want to be in the Harry Potter TV show.
Me too. It's slated for 10 seasons so far. So we're gonna
casting it. Have they started casting it yet?
I don't think so. I don't know when we can try out. I totally want to try out though. I don't know. Let me know. I'll keep you posted.
We'll both look. It might be in London though, or Edinburgh or someplace. Do you think?
I'll travel. I'm a YouTuber. I can do this from anywhere in the world.
Me too, my friend. You're like, oh, that would be the best. Let's manifest that together.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I love you so much. Where were you residing now? I know you said you were in upstate New York for a little while.
I'm back and forth between Houston, upstate New York, and LA. We have places in all of them. And
cool.
Yeah.
I live in Long Island right now. But I do go to Houston every now and then. Upstate New York every now and then, but really not that often.
Well, hit me up. We have an extra room if you're ever coming by.
Okay, cool beans. So I'll end this now. I'll just talk to you off camera for a minute.
Okay. All right.
But thank you so much for coming. Everyone say bye-bye to Dashi. That's Dashi, my little